Hey guys, it's LSuperSonicQ here with a different kind of video than normal. So today's video is a collab with Nightram56. For anyone who doesn't know who that is, he's pretty much the king of video game memorabilia, having started his collection way back in the late 90s. I started my collection in the late 2000s, and it was sort of his influence that inspired me to collect it all. So this video is going to showcase the most memorable items in our collection, and that's something nowadays that I feel like most collectors don't really appreciate, is they just buy and just look at my big collection, but they don't really stop to smell the roses and really think about the items they have or the cool stories or memories that can be attached to them. So that's what me and Nightram are doing today. So this whole video series is going to be broken up into two parts. This part on my channel is going to cover 3 of my items and 3 of Nightram's items, and then jump over to his channel at the end to see 3 more of his items and 3 more of my items. So that's 12 items altogether, and it'll be a really fun nostalgic trip back in time to show you guys not only the rare items of yesterday, but also how we got them and the stories behind them. The first item I want to show you guys today is the 1993 Takara King Dede plush from the Kirby's Adventure set. So this plush in itself is pretty hard to find, it's rare, and the fact that it has a tag is even rarer. But the story about this plush is, it's something that I was not even expecting to get. It sort of happened on a fluke. So one day I was looking on Yahoo Japan Auctions, it's a Japanese auction site, for Kirby stuff, and I ended up finding this plush. Now, I knew this was a couple of years ago too. It was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. At the time, it was still a rare plush, and again, it's still rare nowadays. So people wanted it, and it was desired. Now, this was up for bidding, right? And the starting bid was pretty low. I don't remember exactly how low it was, but it was pretty low. And I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I only had, I don't know, maybe a couple $100. So I said, okay, I can't drop a lot on this, but let's just throw in like 50 bucks. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe we'll win it. Who knows? So I placed the bid and let it sit, and that was that. And I forgot about it. And then the next day I woke up and there was actually a local Comic-Con going on in my town. So I got all ready for Comic-Con and stuff, and I focused on that. And the day kind of sucked, pretty badly. We set up our booth and everything. I was just selling some of my art and stuff, but I don't think we made our money back for the booth space. It was not a very good day because I just didn't make a lot of sales, and it was kind of disappointing. So that sucked, and I was really bummed out. And then I came home and I remembered, oh, I placed a bid on that King Dede. And then my brother went to check the auction and he's like, you'll never guess what. And I'm like, oh, what? We lost it? Like, big surprise. Like, you know, another nail in the coffin for today. And then to my surprise, he said, no, we won it. And I'm like, no, we didn't. He's like, yeah, we did. 50 bucks. So it was crazy that I ended up winning this for 50 bucks on a whim bid on a day that absolutely sucked. And I was really happy. It kind of saved the day. And then after that, I think we went out for pizza with the money that I made from Comic-Con, which was only like 25 bucks, I think. But it was cool. So I sort of had my pizza and this Dede that I had won, and it was really, really cool. And I'll always remember just how sucky that day was and how a fluke bid. I wasn't even expecting to win. I had like no money, but I ended up winning it. And to this day, it's in my collection, and it's just really, really cool to have. And just to look at it a little bit more, it's a really nice plush. Again, it's a classic Dede, which you don't see very often. And he does not have an emblem on his back because this was before he had emblems on his back. So this is complete in mint. And the head string is actually not like other UFO plushes. It's sort of like elasticy. Whereas the other UFO plushes, it's sort of like firm and you can't really stretch it. But so yeah, really, really cool plush. And I will always remember that story connected with this guy. So the next item I have to showcase is a Metroid Zero Mission Zero Suit Samus figure. So there's sort of a long history with this figure in general. The first time I had seen it was actually on Nightram's forums on his website, vgmm.com. And this must have been back in like 2010 or 2011, or maybe even before that, maybe 2009. And there was a thread posted about this figure. And Nightram, I guess, had placed an order for this figure back when it was up for pre-order, you know, all those years ago. And I guess in the thread, he said his pre-order was canceled and he thought that the figure was canceled. But then eventually he found a product image that it came out. So I was really confused when I read that because I thought, oh, this figure was canceled, but then it came out and I didn't really know a whole lot about it. So I did a little research back then and I figured out that, yes, it did come out. It was part of Eugen's Super Real Figure series, and yeah, it existed. But now the problem was trying to get one because even at the time, they were very, very hard to find and they didn't have a very big release. And I was really, really into Metroid in the late 2000s, and I really wanted a Samus figure. I was all about, like, any Samus figure I could get, but all the Metroid figures were very scarce back then. So it was really, really hard to find one. And slowly but surely, I would check like eBay and places like that, and you'd see some for sale. But they'd be like outrageous prices, which I could never afford at the time. And even if I could, I would not pay those prices, like $400, $500, $600. And I thought, like, that is way too much for this figure. And I didn't even know how big it was at the time, because I know Eugene does a lot of Gashapon figures. So I was thinking this figure was like this big, and I was not going to pay $600 for a figure this big. But then slowly but surely, as I started to figure out that Japanese websites like Yahoo Japan Auctions existed, I would start to check those websites, years and years later. We're talking like, like 5 or 6 years after I had first seen this on Nightram's forums. And I would see these pop up occasionally on Japanese websites at the time. But again, they didn't pop up very often, and when they did, they were more money than I wanted to pay for them. Again, like a couple $100, and that was if you didn't get a bunch of bidders bidding on it. This is sort of like a really desired Samus figure for Metroid collectors. Again, I first saw it in like 2010 or something, and only a couple years ago, I think it was maybe last year, 2019, after 9 years, I finally found this figure again, it was sort of on a whim. I had searched a Japanese like secondhand website called Tsurugiya, and I just was searching Metroid, just thinking maybe I'll find this figure, or maybe I'll find some other Samus figure I didn't know existed. And they had this one, and I couldn't believe it. It was only $70, and I don't think I ever bought anything faster than I bought this figure, because finally, after all those years, I had found it for a good price, and it was from a Japanese website, so it wasn't like a reseller or a scalper trying to make a profit on it. I was just really, really happy to finally have this figure. And this was a holy grail of mine. Like, and to this day, I think this figure is one of my favorite pieces of my collection without a doubt. Like, I just remember seeing this back in the day, and like, I used to be a huge Metroid fan in middle school when I was first playing Metroid Prime and stuff. And like, this is, I think, one of the best Samus figures you could possibly get out there. And you get some stands in here, but I don't know how well they would work in supporting the figure, because the figure is it looks pretty fragile, so I guess if you get this, you should probably be careful of that. But yeah, and there's some kind of stuff in the bottom there, but it's really cool, and the art on the back is really nice too. And in the back, I don't know if you can see it, it's sort of like the Metroid Zero Mission box art. So I'm so glad that I finally got it after all those years of hunting for it. So the last item I have for this video is the very, very coveted, very, very desired, and very, very cool Knight's Chow from the Sonic Adventure Wave 2 UFO plush set. So this is a plush I never, ever, ever thought I would get. And it's something I've been wanting pretty much since I first saw it, back in probably the late 2000s. So even before I had started officially collecting and looking at Nightram site and stuff, I would sort of just browse any and every website back in the day, not knowing what was out there and what I might find. So at that time, I had found a website called Anime Mate. And for any of you guys who may not know, Anime Mate was sort of the OG UFO Catcher Plush website. They were located in Japan, and their website had like so many iconic UFO plushes that are all very coveted to this day. The Sonic the Fighter set, the Sonic Adventure set, all the old Mario sets, the Star Fox set, like all those classic sets they had. Now, of course, they didn't have them in stock very often, but the pictures from those websites were the first time I'd ever seen these plushes ever. And a lot of the more classic and famous pictures have come from that website when they would sell the products back in the day. Now, this, of course, did not come from Anime Mate because they sort of died out in the early 2010s, and I didn't even have enough money at the time to even think about buying this back then. So the story of how I got this sort of comes about, again, many, many years later, way long after I had first started collecting. And this was a purchase I made, I think 3 years ago at this point. 2 years ago, maybe. I think it was only 2 years ago. And what's really special about this plush is it wasn't like, oh, I just dropped a bunch of money on eBay for this plush, or like, oh, I had a friend who knew a friend that gave it to me for no reason, just because, whatever. This plush is sort of the epitome of hard work. So this is kind of the first big purchase I bought when I had my first real job, I guess. Well, I've had a few different jobs, but this one that I had 2 years ago was really the first, like, 5 days a week real job that I had. And I was making more money than I had ever made before, and that was before I was really doing YouTube like as seriously as I do now with the uploads and stuff. So it was pretty much that job. That was what I was doing. That was how I was making money. That's, you know, everything like that. So one night I thought, okay, I have a little bit of money. I can probably spare a little bit on a collectible or something. Let me go see what's out there. So I did a really, I guess maybe a fluke, if you want to call that, a fluke search for Sonic Adventure 2 plush in Japanese on Google. Not thinking I would find anything, because usually you don't really find anything just doing broad Google searches, especially in Japanese. I had seen a picture of a Knight's Chow plush that I had never seen before, and again, with the famous pictures from Anime Mate and the old collectors and stuff from the past, you'd sort of get to know certain images, you know, as being iconic. But I had seen a Knight's Chow in a weird position I had never seen before, so I thought, is this for sale? Is this, like, what's up with this? So I went to check it out, and turns out this was on, just like the Samus, this was on Sarugia, the same website, and it was for sale. And it was only $400, which, considering the rarity and desirability of this plush, that was a steal. And again, I was making so much money at the time at my job, I thought, I gotta do this. I got this. Like, this is fate. It's telling me I have to get this plush. So without hesitation, well, there was a little bit. My brother actually totally convinced me on it. But we put in the order, and I ended up getting it. It went through, and a few weeks later, I think I had it shipped priority. I ended up getting it, and I opened that box, and oh my gosh, that was like it may have been the best package I've ever opened. You just saw his face in the box, just peeking up, and I'm like, oh my god. And I've actually kept him in this bag for all this time because, well, first off, like, again, I'm like really afraid to touch him. Like, he's gonna disintegrate if I hold him. But also, like, just seeing these barcodes and these labels, I know you might think it's stupid, but to me, it just, like, shows, like, I don't know, just, you know, like you bought this. Like, you bought this from a website. This was sitting in Japan, and now it's, you know, it's in my house, in my collection, and, like, just sort of the history of, like, someone packed this and, like, all that kind of stuff. But it gets a little crazier than that, actually. I had actually tried to buy this plush a year before I ended up buying it, but I missed it. So I said that Sarugia was the website I purchased this from, which it was. But a year before I found it on Sarugia, this guy had been in a lot of another Knight's Chow and 2 Neutral Chow plushes on Yahoo Japan auctions. It was a lot of 4 of them. And I had seen that auction when it was up. And my brother and I decided that we were going to combine our money and go in to win the auction. I think we dropped like $900 or something on that auction, and we ended up losing it for only a little bit more than that. It was either $1,000 or $1,100, something like that. And we sort of just forgot about it. I said whoever won that was probably going to be a reseller. We're going to see these on eBay for $50,000 each, and that's the end of it. But I ended up finding out that Sarugia was actually the people who won that auction based on the way this tag was creased and the position of certain elements of the Chow. From that original listing, I had compared it to the one on the website after I bought it, and having this in hand, and turns out it was the same plush I had lost. So talk about fate wanting me to have this plush. Yeah, it was like double fate that I was going to get this. And like, after all that time, this Chow ended up finding his way into my collection. And I really, really like this plush. So I'll give you sort of a close-up of him. There are better pictures online for sure. Again, like, I never took him out of this bag, and I probably won't, but the tail is so cool. It's like a little, like, spiky tail, and the wings sort of have like a fabric to them that's sort of like metallic-y, and the eyes are hard plastic. No scratches on the eyes. The tag is a little creased. It's not, like, perfect, but it is still on the plush, and, yeah, I just, really, really great plush. Really cool memory connected with this guy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this part of the video. Coming up right after this is Nightram's items that he chose to talk about from his collection. And then after that, jump on over to his channel and watch the full continuation of this video series. So thanks for watching, and here's Nightram.
Thanks, LSuperSonicQ, and boy, it's been a lot of fun doing this with you, talking with these great items that we've gotten, and the great stories of how we got them are even better. So thanks for doing this crossover event with me. Let's get right back to the stories then. This guy, this gigantic Mario statue here, he sits 4 feet tall. And of course, he's got a good story. Well, something I never, ever search. And I had really just been eBay and Yahoo Japan auctions forever. And one day, I'm like, well, maybe, because I'd never really seen much locally. Denver is not a great place to get game stuff. It just isn't. And one day I'm like, well, I'm just going to look and see what there is available on Craigslist. So I had searched for Craigslist stuff before, but never my Nintendo stuff. And I'm just like, well, let's see what's up there. First thing that popped up was this guy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything in my local area, and it happens to be a 4-foot statue. How in the world? Well, I didn't really talk to the guy much about where he got it, but these were in CompUSA stores and Toys R Us's. So when CompUSA went out of business, these guys ended up in people's hands. The picture that he had up for this guy showed him just hanging out in the kitchen next to a dishwasher in a small apartment. And I could tell it was kind of a small apartment because it looked older, and why he was stuck there, it just looked like they had room for him there. So it looked like he needed to get rid of it kind of fast. He had it up at a high amount, and really everything in my collection just about has been under $500. I don't like spending more than $500 at a time. Some of the first 4 figure statues are over $500, but this guy, he wanted, I think, $800 for him in the Craigslist. And I'm like, I'd like to come see him, see what I can, negotiate, and see what condition he's in. He is in fantastic condition. There's a couple of dings that some year I'll get around to buffing out. But I don't want to damage him too much. Because a lot of these are damaged. Just paint or otherwise. It's extremely difficult to repaint because to get the exact same paint job on it is really difficult. So I just walked over and, well, not walked over, but I drove over. I was quite a ways, and I went with my dad. And we talked to the guy. It seemed like he wanted to get rid of it then. Like he just needed to get it out of his house. So whatever that was about, he needed it gone. Well, I'm the guy. And he wanted it to go to someone who would appreciate it. And I made sure to have pictures of my collection on hand so I could show. So what I did was go over there, show him the pictures, tell him my story, and I'm like, I have $500 in my pocket today. I can get you the rest of the money maybe another day unless you sell it for $500 today. He sold it then. So I was able to grab it and bring it home. The thing about it was I didn't have any room for it either. So it sat at my parents' house for a long time because I didn't have room for it in my 2-bedroom apartment. It was the same time I was living there. So I couldn't bring it home. And they had it, and they had it, and they had it. And eventually someone wanted me to sell it. And I'm like, I don't want to sell it. But then another one came up on eBay, and I had that one shipped to my parents' house. And that was a funny day because I forgot to tell them I was shipping them a Mario statue, and this gigantic Mario statue shows up and in a box. And they're like, what did you do, Brett? So they had 2 Mario statues at their house, and I was able to keep the better of the 2, which was this one, which is still funny. And the other one I sold to someone in New York, and took this guy home, and he hasn't left since. He's moved with me a couple of times, and he's always been one of the best parts of the collection. I know there are other Mario statues out there, but this one just has a great face, a great sculpt. It's not as classic as the other ones. It just has kind of this... it was like the early 2000s face that they went with. You can see that again in like the Wendy's merchandise and stuff that came out with their stuff in the early 2000s Mario. And now he looks different, but I love that he looks like this in this era. So that's that guy. The next big story I have... Oh, this is going to fall if I move this. Super Mario Bros. 3 signed by Shigeru Miyamoto. Now this happened at an E3, and I don't normally tend to show off gaming stuff. Like, this is video game merchandise. I don't really talk about the games much. But this game has been my favorite game forever. Just perfection. It's like it was built for me. My favorite animal's a raccoon, so to have Mario be a raccoon, and just like when I saw the wizard, I lost my mind about Super Mario Bros. 3. So this game has always been one of the best for me. And to have the copy, my childhood copy signed, was a huge thing. So I had gone to E3, I think once before, and had an amazing time. Like that E3 at 2012, I think, was amazing. The next year I went with a friend of mine, and I didn't really ever take anything to sign, because, you know, Charles Martinet is around, and, well, really everyone is around. And that year I decided to stuff my Super Mario Bros. 3 copy in an old Saturn game box, if you believe that, to keep it protected under plastic, and just put it in my satchel and see if I could get it signed. And I was around Miyamoto a couple of times, but I never really got close to him. And then the fateful day. So before E3 started, on the first day, they were having a Nintendo event on the floor in E3 before everyone else could get in. And somehow I got invited to that. I'm still not sure how, but I got invited to that little press conference deal. And I was just hanging out around the back area, and they just kind of had a stage, and I was like, okay, the stage, whatever, and I was just like looking around at the Nintendo stuff. No one was stopping me. There was very, very little security. And then I saw Shigeru Miyamoto kind of in the back area, and he was set to go on stage at some point, but I didn't know. And they were talking about some other things on stage, so there was a presentation going on. And I figured, this is my only shot. This is the time I'm going to get Miyamoto's signature, and I'm not going to pass it up. So I walked basically right up to him, and he was like in a little booth behind the stage. And I'm like, could you please sign this copy? Like, hello, Miyamoto-san, can you please sign this copy of Super Mario Bros. 3? And he had a pen on him, and he did. Or I gave him a Sharpie. I made sure to have that. So he took my pen, he signed it. Here's the signature. He put a little star on it. But he kind of gave me a look, like I shouldn't be here, I shouldn't be doing this. And I remember the lady that was handling him, his handler, was like, no. And then, like, before she was able to stop me, the transaction had already been made. I had the game box in his hand. So he signed it, and I immediately put it back in my plastic and took off. Like, that was it. And Miyamoto was like, he kind of gave me this look like he shouldn't be here or whatever. But that was that was such a great E3 moment. It wasn't. It was probably the best moment I had at E3, but I had so many good E3 moments that I'll have to talk more about my E3 time. But there is that item, Super Mario Bros. 3. And then the third item I'm going to talk about is this extremely rare Luigis Mansion flashlight. Now, on there, it says Luigis Mansion, and the coolest part is it projects an item an image of the GameCube logo, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you very well, because it can turn on, and it can turn like this middle thing where you can hit this red button, and it'll turn it on, just like in the game. And this is I've seen these types of flashlights before, but let me see if I can get it to, yeah, you really can't see that, but it projects an image of the Nintendo GameCube logo. And it comes with this bag. Just set it down here. This bag says Luigi's Mansion. Help Luigi scare away ghosts in Luigi's Mansion. Now, of course, this is when they were doing all their GameCube promotionals in early 2000, and that was a great time to get gaming merch because people were going crazy about it. So how did I get it? Well, my friend, and I had mentioned this before, David Thomas, he worked for the Denver Post, and he was their gaming journalist, so he got to go to E3 every year. And I took a class with him at the University of Colorado, Denver, about video games and where video games were going. And I hung around with him a lot because, I mean, just to have someone in my life who had worked reviewing video games, something that I had always wanted to do and now do, Nintendo Force magazine. So he just had boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff, of gaming swag from E3 and things that had been sent to him. And a lot of his items, I guess, ended up on that raffle stage with Brian Crescente and Kotaku's staff. But a lot of it didn't, and he needed to get rid of it. So we struck up a deal, 50-50 basically. I would take all the items, and I'd sell what I could. I'd sell what I could, but I could save some of the items for myself that I wanted. So I took the rarest stuff, obviously, and then I sold on eBay. So everything that I sold on eBay, I'd take half of and then give him half, which was an amazing deal. Normally you'd have to like just outright buy everything and then get rid of the stuff that you didn't want. Well, I'm still trying to sell some of his stuff, but this is one of the rarest items. There's also like a Ocarina of Time letter opener that I have and stuff like that from his E3 stuff. And just a lot of really crazy and dumb stuff. I'll have to go through all of it. You've seen some of it on my channel. If you watch my channel, I have some of the things up from his collection. But this is probably one of the rarest. I sold a Pikmin garden that he had, and it was like a pot where you had real dirt and real seeds and everything, and you could grow your own Pikmin in this little pot. And that sold for around $1,000. So that was really cool. But he was astonished. I kept telling him, you know, this stuff is worth a pretty penny to those who would pay for it. And I said, I bet I could get, you know, X amount of dollars for this. And he's like, no way. So when I actually sold it for those prices, he was really astonished, and started letting me keep the stuff that I wanted. So that's how I got the Luigi's Mansion stuff. So it's really, sometimes it's just luck of the draw, what you get, and how you get it. And sometimes you just grab it off of eBay or walk into a store and get it. But the items that are your favorite as a collector tend to be the ones with the best stories. So thank you for watching. Thank you, LSuperSonicQ, again for letting this happen, letting this crossover event take place. And I will see you on my channel. Thanks for watching.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of my other game-related Lost Media videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Finn.